Welcome everybody to this morning's meeting of the Corporate Services and Economic Growth Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Today, Monday the 17th of April. Can I just remind everyone that this meeting, although it's not been live streamed, it is being recorded to be uploaded onto YouTube later this afternoon, probably, is that right? Councillor Bourne has tabled his apologies this morning, so I will be chairing the meeting in his place. Sean, have I any other apologies for absence?
I have apologies from Councillor Bourne, Councillor Murphy and Councillor Wearmouth.
Thank you. Right, item 2 on the agenda is the minutes of the previous meeting, and those are the minutes of the meeting held on the 13th of March, which we've all seen. Are members happy to confirm these as a true record? Can I just say, first of all, at the last meeting, I think members requested an update on the Northumberland lottery.
Yes, I did, Chair.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That hasn't been in the work programme, that's fine. Great.
Yes.
Fine. So we are happy to approve those as a true record. Thank you. Item 3 on the agenda is disclosure of members' interests. So can I just ask if there are any coming forward? No. And item 4 on the agenda is the forward plan of Cabinet decisions. So this it's in the agenda pack on pages 5 to 6, and generally this is an information item, but if anybody wants to make any comments on it, now is the time to do so. No? Are we happy then just to note the plan? Yeah, thank you. Right. Item 5 on the agenda is BEST, and it's the Delivery Partners Resourcing. We have Councillor Sanderson here to introduce this morning, so I'll hand over to him.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for asking me to come to your meeting. I have Kelly Gardner beside me, who will take every question that's not really simple. What I'd like to do is simply introduce this report and tell you why I think this is really important for the Council. We know that we can't, none of us want to reduce the services that we provide to the public. That means that we have to make sure that all the housekeeping, all the procedures, all the processes and all the frontline work that we do and all the back office work that we do is done in the most efficient and productive way that we can and in the best way, and thus the name. And we need to not only demonstrate to ourselves, but demonstrate to our residents who pay their council tax that they are receiving value for money. And actually, this is so important to this administration that value for money is one of our 3 key priorities, along with tackling inequalities and encouraging business. This, I'm going to assume you've read this report because it's very detailed. Essentially, to me, it does, on top of providing that very strong reality check around efficiencies and doing things the best way we can, it also puts the customer absolutely front of everything that we do. And without being able to demonstrate, as I said before, to ourselves as well as to them, that we are doing everything in the best possible way, in the most efficient way, then it's always difficult to then say, well, we're going to have to cut some services. Because if you're a council taxpayer, you don't want to see council tax go up unless you're getting the services in return. That's what I like to think we've done this year, and we will continue to do that, I hope, with your support in the future. There are 39 projects within this. Some are going to need external partners and delivery partners to help us deliver these. They're outlined in the paper. And I think probably the most important thing I would say is that we have tried as a council over the years to look at what we call transformation, doing things differently and better. None of those have really worked and being sustainable. This is very much a whole council approach that brings everyone with us, listens to everyone, whether they are an apprentice that joined us recently or someone that's been with us for 40 years. Their views are important. Similarly, excuse me, your views are very important, so that we will make sure there will be senior member representation on the board, and from this AGM, I will be asking whoever covers our finance and corporate services portfolio to lead on this, and thus make sure that we are fully aware and fully with it and agreeing with things as we go along. But equally important, we want to make sure that members of scrutiny are fully updated as well. And I know that Kelly will be glad to come and talk to you anytime you want to see where we've got to and so on. I think this is the most important project internally that the council has ever tackled. But we're doing it for the right reasons, and we are trying to take everyone with us, and I think we will, as I say, at all levels of staff and our public and residents out there as well. So if there are any questions that you have, I'd be glad to answer them, but I'd probably just kick them over to Kelly, who's so good at doing these things.
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. Obviously, this report, it does set out the details that were considered and approved by Cabinet back in March, and it gives the recommendations in relation to commencing the open procurement process to engage a delivery partner. I'm going to throw it open now that if anybody's got any questions that they want to ask about this report. Councillor Wallace.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. A very simple question. I understand completely what the leader is saying. It's not just about saving money, it's enhancing better services. And that what I want a little bit more on is from Kelly bringing information back to us. I don't think it would be right, and I'm not saying you're suggesting it, that we wait 3 years to see if this has worked or not. I can understand your board will get all the information, but if we are to act as a scrutiny committee, we need these things. For example, March to discuss, it's nearly May, we need it in March to discuss it before it goes elsewhere in May the next time. It's not a criticism, I understand how these things happen, but I would like it to be, because there was something said at full council, which I can't recall too well, and I don't want to go into either, that if you're going to spend money on transformation to get that back, I'd like to know if it is that 3 million that year. Has it spent less? Has it spent more? Are we on target? How can we get better on target? These are the things we need to know. But I would like, I'm repeating myself, but it's just to make sure I'm clear on it, I would like us to be part of that and not just a board to be part of that. Thank you.
So I can give you the assurance, as I said before, that members of scrutiny, will be kept fully in the loop, as you require to be, and a simple, straightforward guarantee of that.
Thank you. I mean, in the pre-meeting, we've actually had this sort of discussion, and Kelly's quite agreeable to having at least six monthly reports coming back. So I think that's a good sort of timescale to do that.
Yeah, we've just had that, as the Chair's just said, we've just had this discussion. 6 monthly reports. We've also talked about whether scrutiny would want to do deep dives on themes. So it may be that in some of the community's first model or the customer experience or the digital, you want to actually get a specific report on certain elements. We acknowledge, I think scrutiny has a real key part to make sure that we are getting the benefits realisation on this programme, both financial and non-financial benefits. So if it would be agreeable with yourselves 6 monthly, and then you can, as we go through, pick areas that you may want to do more detailed deep dives on, and we can bring that to you. That's not a problem at all.
Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. first of all, I mean, I really welcome this work. There's been a sort of few false dawns on transformation work over recent years, and it's really good to see something sort of progressing to this point. Two questions. One is really sort of picking up on what Councillor Wallace said, and maybe going a little bit further. In terms of monitoring effectiveness, it's going to be easy to monitor the financial effectiveness because there's budgets and we can look at spend against budgets. But in terms of the actual impact on services, improving customer service, improving the experience of Northumberland residents, could you give us a little bit more detail on how that will be monitored, aside from it coming back to scrutiny as well? You know, because ideally it'd be good to spot problems before it gets here. And then secondly, Glenn, you mentioned that this was a sort of process that's going to involve everybody, and there'll be, I'm sure, you know, the procurement process will throw up some sort of, you know, consultants, and there'll be very intelligent people, but they won't actually be frontline staff working in Northumberland County Council. How will we make sure that we actually get the knowledge of the people that are actually out there delivering day to day? Because I'm sure they'll have some really good ideas too.
If I could just answer that last bit first. The people that know how to lay tar and to fix potholes are the ones that are actually doing it. They're not consultants or people like us, because we don't know. And they will have a voice in all of this, because we've said that from the start. They must have. And we must listen too as well. This is going to be quite a radical step for the council to take, not in terms of putting a knife through important key services or threatening staff. Not at all. That's not what this is about. This is about encouraging that consultation, that dialogue and discussion with the people that know what they're talking about, along with our delivery partners who are experts, to be able to pull together a finished article that will make sure that we can say, you can say, all of you can say, we are delivering services in the best possible way we can as a very large organisation. We've done this, we've put our heart into this and our soul into this, and we will make sure that the process is done properly and complete. We've tried this before, as I've said, over the years, some time ago now, to be fair, but this is absolutely the way to ensure we can say we are giving you value for money.
Councillor Beenan.
Do you want me to sorry?
Oh, sorry.
Just to add a little bit on that. So in terms of the first one about how we are ensuring, so one of the enabling work streams under the programme is around benefits realisation. It's a massive key part to us because we need to ensure that we are delivering, don't we, and we're monitoring it. So each of the work streams have very clear outcomes identified with KPIs and measures, and they will feed into board and will feed in the quarterly reports that go to Cabinet as well, so that we're ensuring that we are doing it. I have a really strong team myself of senior project managers and a programme manager who are very skilled in doing that work, and we are making sure that that is the front and foremost of all the work streams, that each of them we are identifying that. So I think that is crucial. We've got to make sure that we are both looking at the financial and the non-financial measures. Obviously the non-financial are much more difficult, but we're working through about what things we can measure and how we can do it. I think the partner, when they come in, will help us do that because they've got a wealth of experience of that as well, or will have a wealth of experience across public sector bodies. In terms of the part about engagement and getting people involved, we've already started. This is not, the delivery partner is to help us with some specific areas. The programmes have already started, the work streams are set up. We have already been going out the last few weeks, me and my team, engaging ambassadors. So with staff across, and we've had a really good response. And as you say, those are the people who know already. In the 4 sessions we've had, we're already getting some brilliant ideas from those people on the front line. And what we need to do, as the leader said, is combine that, the knowledge that we've got with our frontline staff, with the expertise we've got both internally from my team and the partners. And I think that is the best thing to do. We've got the soft launch coming up, again, engaging, going out. And key part of that, again, is getting people's ideas and making sure that our staff have a voice, and that is crucially important to us.
Councillor Beenan.
Thanks, Chair. I think over the last few years we've made great strides in this, and I think this takes it even further. And it's a very important document, and I think well welcomed. even though over the last year we have maybe had some bad headlines, this is going a long way to get over those. And we are a multi-million pound business. We do obviously things for the residents, but as a whole, it is a multi-million pound business. And there's two things we must do, and this hopefully will do, but I would like to know how it will be done. Getting the information out to the public. We are doing great work, but a lot of the public don't realise that. And a lot of the stuff we do is fantastic, but the public get the same complaints because they don't have the knowledge that we are doing great work. And the second point is, and Councillor Oliver and Councillor Sanderson's answered it, but I'd like some technical information. We have so many fantastic staff on the lower levels, and there is a lot of frustration that their ideas aren't coming up. As Councillor Sanderson says, that people who lay the tarmac and fix the roads know better than we do how to do it properly and more efficiently. But I get the feeling that that's not being filtered through. And Councillor Sanderson, I know it's as important to him as it is to me that we get this information up. How will you do that? It's all very well saying we're going to listen, but how will that actually happen? And also, if there has to be no sort of comeback, if somebody on the sort of lower level wants to criticise management, they have to be allowed to do that without any sort of feedback.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And one of the things, as I said, is that we are very focused on what the message has been around this is a new way of work, and we want to hear your views. There should be no comeback. We all want council. We need to work together really strongly, don't we, to hear people's ideas. As I said, the first thing we've been doing is engaging ambassadors. So we want people who are passionate about change, who want to get involved in this. And we've gone out, we've got almost 100 staff who are interested in being ambassadors and already coming through ideas. Other things we've started talking about is really quickly, and as I say, we'll be doing this soft launch starting from Wednesday for a whole week out across the county, as are the executives and the work stream leads, just speaking to people. Part of the plan as well will be that we work at different sites. This is in County Hall base. We're going to work at different sites across the county as a programme team, so people can just drop in at any time and give us their ideas. One of the very early things that we want to do in the programme, and myself and Chris Thompson, our Service Director for IT, have been discussing this, is him and I potentially going out and facilitating some sessions with staff across these areas to get bitly about best ideas. Let's tell us the ideas, let's see which ones we can explore, and then we'll do further sessions on kind of hackathon style events on how we can explore those ideas. And I think it is crucial. One of the other things I would say is that we need to be so much engaged in when we hear what people are saying, going back, so not just leaving it. So if we can't do it, being very clear to the staff why we can't do that and the reason behind it. And so I'm really passionate about making sure that that ongoing dialogue happens.
Absolutely. So, if there are no more questions...
Sorry, Councillor Robinson.
Sorry, Leader. You don't get away that easy. It seems to be, the whole project seems to be two-pronged. There's the delivery of services, but there's also the financial implications. So I've got a question on each bit. Is the changes, what we're looking at, the transformational services, is that across the board? Because, you know, some of the language would suggest that we're not delivering the way we should in some areas. Now, surely a lot of the areas we're delivering as best we can. So it'll be hard to see any improvement if you are doing the best you can. So is it across the board?
Yeah, the transformation and the work and the programme is across the board. We are looking at the way we do things, like, so for example, the digital side, where we can do things, we're not saying that we're not delivering, but where we can do things better, where we can improve it, where we can make change, to be more efficient in the way we do things, where we can reduce duplication, which means that we can focus more time on another area that may need more development and more support. So yes, it is across the board. All areas of the council will be covered.
Fine.
Jan, did you want to add anything to that?
Well, actually, Janice may want to come in my next question. Because it's about the costs. It's about the 3 million per annum over the next 3 years, the £9 million. Now, I'm looking at 14 on page 44, and you've got the costs and you've got the commitments. There seems to be a lot of commitments, especially in the first year. But but there's, out of the 3 years, there's 3.5 million left, and there's 2.25 million for the cost of new rules in that service. So are you telling us that now, at the very beginning, you've got the whole plan costed out, and probably all the money's taken care of over the next 3 years? I mean, what happens if these consultants or whoever come in and suggest new ways of doing things that require additional funding? What happens then? That it looks as if you've committed the whole budgets already.
Chair, would you like me to
Yes,
take that
please,
question?
Jan.
So in the resource assessment Appendix 1, what it says is that we've committed 2.6 million, so we have 6.4 million left at the moment. And that funding that we've committed is predominantly for the core programme. So, you know, we have a programme team, Kelly has a programme team, there are a number of roles that we're currently recruiting to, and we also have provided for a budget for backfill, so that where we need to bring in service experts for a period of time to help us work on the redesign and the implementation, you know, from the services around the council, that we can provide some funding to allow the service to backfill, you know, for say 6 months, 12 months, however long that's needed. So that's where the bulk of the funding that's been committed has gone. There will be some specific investments that we need to make. You know, not least, you know, there will probably be some IT investments that we need to make, and that is subject to us developing the next level of detail, because what we've had so far is a strategic business case. By its nature, it's fairly high level. What the work streams are doing at the moment, I'm sure Kelly can, you know, sort of add to this, is working through the detail and coming up with the detailed business cases that set out what those investments are, and also validating and confirming the delivery of savings. Because this is an iterative process, you know, and you can't consume the elephant all in one go. We do have to, you know, actually divide it up to make it more digestible. And so the 39 individual projects, there will be detailed business cases for each of them, and they will identify what further investments are required. What I would say is that we have not yet built any savings from the programme into the MTFP. So if we find that 9 million isn't going to stretch far enough, and at the moment I have no basis for saying that it won't, but if we find that 3 million a year is not enough and that we need to invest more in order to maximise those benefits, then we do have scope for reinvesting some of the in-year savings. But at the moment, there's no reason to suppose that 9 million won't be enough to do what we need to do. Clearly, there will need to be some prioritisation. And part of the discussion that we'll need to have is what is the balance when we're doing that prioritisation between delivery of financial benefits and non-financial benefits. But this programme has been designed to be self-financing and to deliver significant financial savings as well as the non-financial benefits. But we have to keep that balance under review. Does that answer your question, Councillor Robinson?
It does, and especially that last bit, Jan, because that's exactly our position. I would hope the scrutiny committee is doing exactly that job. I'm just looking at the figures on page 44, though, and it seems it's fully committed already, and we've hardly started. Now, what you said, I completely understand, I completely agree with, that sometimes there might be extras to be paid for, and it can be found out of savings that have accrued, whatever. That ain't a problem, but we need to be aware of it because we were told that 3 million a year over 3 years was the total commitment to this project. And it may be and it may not be. That's all.
Thank you, Malcolm. Well, if we're getting 6 monthly reports coming back on this, this is something that we do need to be keeping touch with. So does that answer your question for the time being? Yeah, that's fine. Are you leaving us? I have one question, but it is for Kelly, so...
No. Please go ahead.
Right, I mean, just to sum up, I mean, this is a massive project and heaven forbid it won't happen again anytime soon. The report does go into detail to explain why we're going down this open procurement route for external people. My question to Kelly is, can we be assured that the current staff will actually benefit from this? I mean, will it improve their base knowledge, their skills, so that hopefully we'll never end up in this situation again?
Yeah, we can definitely assure that the current staff, we are wanting to engage the current staff as much as possible in this, and I think I've outlined that a number of things that we're doing. We'll work alongside the delivery partner. This is not bringing someone in and they'll be sit over in it. We will become one team, so my team will work completely alongside the delivery partner. We'll have that shared knowledge alongside this whole programme. We will also have a learning and development plan for our staff, ensuring that they are upskilled, that they have a development journey, and that any training and learning is also encompassed within it.
Thank you. Councillor Wallace?
Chair, sorry, just a quick one. I watch the news like most people do every day, and there seems to be shortages in every line of work. So I don't imagine there's a lot of external experts just sitting out there waiting for Northumberland County Council to pick up the telephone. But I can imagine you're not going to do 13 of your 39 each year. There'll be some coming in, some coming out. But are you confident you'll be able to get these external consults? And today's price is bound to be different in 2 years' time. And I think that's where we'll need Jan to do her magic in line with Malcolm's request. So it's really not a question.
Councillor,
I think it's an observation.
Yep.
Thank you. I understand this well thought out process. It's a long, multi-stage process going for 3 years. And also I get the impression that the consultations are going to be widespread and profound, especially at the end level of workers. So I'm just wondering how soon assuming the changes have recommended, implemented, how soon the residents are likely to see the impact of these changes? Any idea?
Well, one straight away is Fix My Street, which is a new programme that we've procured, which will greatly improve the current system of residents getting in touch with us about potholes and other things. Well overdue, but that's one of the key decisions we've made, and that is going to be underway in the next few weeks, I believe.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, if there's no further questions, if I just sum this up, I mean, it's a really in-depth report. And going forward, this committee was just asked to consider the next steps in this process. I think we've done that. We've made it quite clear where we want to be involved in those next steps, monitoring it. But I'll go back to Councillor Sanderson's remark at the beginning, where he said that it was the effect and the impact on the customers or the residents. So I think that has to play a big part with this scrutiny committee going forward. We need to get out there and actually ask the residents how this is affecting them. And that's something that we need to look at with the chair when he's back. But I think that will be a vital role of this scrutiny committee going forward in monitoring this whole programme.
Can I just answer that? Because that's a really important point. I believe scrutiny should challenge the cabinet members, whoever they are, and whatever their responsibilities are, and I always welcome that. So yes, I would want to be held to account on the progress here. and I'm more than happy to have that. In terms of talking to the public, I'm actually going to be, I actually go to quite a lot of public meetings now and always raise this matter with parish and town councils at public meetings, and I'll continue to do that because it is very important that we demonstrate that we are looking at ourselves properly and in a focused way. Finally, can I just say thank you again for having me along this morning. I would like to thank the team that are here, the officer team that are here, plus one or two others that aren't here who play a very large role in this programme. But I'm very grateful to them for keeping up the pressure and taking this so seriously and being so committed to it, which is really nice. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 6 on the agenda, which is the financial performance 2022-23, and it's the position at the end of December 2022. This report's on page 23 to 92, and it gives details of the information given to Cabinet at their meeting on the 14th of March. So this committee is asked to review the current financial position. So if there's any questions on this report, now is the time to do it. And if you've got any comments on the financial position going forward that you want to ask, it's equally the time to do it. So I'll throw it open to the floor. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. The sort of devil's in the detail on these reports, and I think the appendices at the back, looking through individual service areas, are really helpful. Just a couple of points that sort of jump out because they're large numbers. The commission services in adult social care and commissioning, there's an overspend forecast of 3.5 million, and that's offset in other areas, so that the net overspend for the whole service area is only a couple of £100,000. But that overspend of 3.5 million, the reason given for that is a high level of savings target allocated to this area. That doesn't really seem to me to be a sort of legitimate reason, because presumably that savings target was agreed when the budget was set. So I guess the risk, have we got the same risk in the budget that we just agreed in February, I suppose is the question. And then moving on to the children's services, big overspend, perfectly understandable overspend around home to school transport in the SEND budget. And obviously, there's a requirement to meet those costs, otherwise those children wouldn't get to school. And hopefully the prices of fuel and things will come down. But is there anything else we can do to address that? And the extra capacity we're building within the county for SEND, is that going to help offset some of those costs?
Joe, would you like me to
yes, please,
respond to those questions? So, Councillor Oliver, the first point about the adult services overspend, I believe it was a £3 million savings figure that was built in from review of packages of care. This is something which we do every year on an ongoing basis to make sure that people are receiving the right level of service. The team that normally do those reviews have, for the most part, been redeployed to help plug some of the gaps in our domiciliary care services, where, as you know, we have had real difficulties in ensuring that we can fulfil new packages of care, and particular recruitment issues in the west of the county. So that's because we've diverted resources to address that issue. Those people will ordinarily be carrying out the reviews that deliver the savings. So that position is starting to stabilise. We did have some very careful discussions as part of the budget setting process with the executive director for adults about whether it was sensible to build in, a continuing savings target, and he felt that there was scope for doing that within his overall budget. So, as you said, although there's an overspend on commission services, there are some offsetting underspends elsewhere. But we will keep that under really careful review as we go through the year. Children's services and special education needs, both areas of, of both demand-led areas where we, in common with all councils with social care responsibilities, are experiencing, significant pressure on budgets, partly driven by the cost of meeting the needs of those children, but also inflation is also having a significant impact. So both of those areas, we have done some preliminary work through the BEST programme, the Value for Money work stream of the BEST programme, to look at how we can manage demand more effectively and to look at different service delivery models that would help us to, at the very least, contain those pressures. Not suggesting, that we can actually make savings in these areas, but certainly to stem some of the, this really significant growth that we've seen in recent years. And I know that the new Executive Director of Children's Services has brought forward some proposals in that regard, which are being worked up in more detail as part of the BEST programme. I should say the Value for Money work stream of the BEST programme is actually looking at some of those areas where budgets have had to be increased really significantly in recent years. Some of that in adult services links to the community first model, which Kelly mentioned, and links in very much to sort of how we're approaching commissioning and procurement, which is another key theme of the BEST programme. So all of these things are very much on the radar for the BEST programme, and I think we've got some quite innovative ideas about how we reshape service delivery so that we can work within the affordability envelope that we have, but still continue to deliver those services that are needed.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Any other questions, Malcolm?
Thank you, Chair. Janet says this is the position at the end of December 22. And there's references in here to the BEST programme and the Transformational Fund. Had that been agreed by December 22? I'm not sure it had. And if it had, the Transformational Fund, as far as I'm aware, was in this year's budget. So it should have started in April 23.
Actually, Councillor Robertson, it was in last year's budget. The initial £3 million investment was in the 22-23 financial year. So we're now in year 2 in terms of the funding. But because of the lag, the time lag in terms of us preparing the strategic business case, we're not going to fully spend the £3 million. Or we haven't spent the full £3 million that was allocated in year 1. So it's being rolled forward through the Transformation Reserve. But that £3 million commitment for 3-year funding commitment for 3 years was actually agreed as part of the 22-23 budget.
Thank you.
Councillor Ashton.
Thank you very much, Chair. As I look at this final figure in page 33, I think we are overspending by 4.784 million. Is that correct? Or at least we are predicted to overspend in the 22-23. Yeah, the forecast outturn. Is that correct? Yeah, that looks to me, in terms of percentage, 4.7 against the total expenditure of 382.624 million. Yeah, a very small percentage. I don't recall what was the, kind of a deficit, if I may use the word, expenditure exceeding the revenue last year. I don't recall whether this is a typical figure we encounter each year, or is there any, is it small or large in terms of the past years? If it is large, is there any specific reason why it is large? Is there any comment on that one? Thank you.
Back to you, Jan.
Yes, through you, Chair. In recent years, we've always reported an underspend at the end of the year. So to be predicting an overspend is a change. You're right that in the overall scheme of things, it's a relatively minor. It's just over 1%, 1.5% of our net revenue budget. But nevertheless, as has previously been reported, we have seen some really intense inflationary and pressures in 22-23, which will be continuing into the current year's budget. And we have had to work very hard to get that forecast overspend down. So the two principal things feeding into that being energy price increases and the cost of the pay award, which was significantly higher than we were forecasting at the time we set the 22-23 budget. This position here shows the position for the services. There are some corporate budgets as well, including the in-year contingency, which also feed through into the outturn position. And the report that will be going to next cabinet with the provisional outturn position suggests that we have now moved into an overall underspend position, which is really pleasing. We've had to work really hard in year to get to that position. We had, of course, as the report sets out, set aside just over £5 million in an exceptional inflation contingency provision, which we have drawn down. We've also had some government help with energy bills. We've been able to find other ways of offsetting some of those pressures, and part of that has been about making sure that we were not drawing down from the in-year contingency other than for genuinely unavoidable items. So we have screwed that down pretty tightly, and all of that has allowed us to get to a final sort of provisional outturn position, as I say, which is an underspend, probably around £2 million. Clearly there's some further work that needs to be done to get to the final outturn position, some of the technical accounting work around bad debt provision, impairment of assets, etc. But I'm confident that that when we do report the final outturn position, it won't be an overall overspend. And I have to say, that's a really satisfying result if we look around at some of the really significant overspends that other councils will be reporting for 22-23. And I think the other thing to say is that in terms of the current year budget, we have built in significant amounts for ongoing inflationary pressures and also general sort of service pressures. So I'm as confident as I can be at this stage, given that we're only 2 weeks into the new financial year, that we'll also be able to deliver a balanced outturn position this year. But it is becoming much more challenging to do that. So we will need to, husband our resources quite carefully.
Thank you, Jan. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. Jan, can I ask you about the reprofiling to the capital programme, because that's the biggest item on the list. I don't know if you'll be able to answer it, but do you know what that entails? Was that cancelled projects? Was that extended projects? Was that projects put in abeyance for a couple of years? I mean, how did we manage to save £49 million nearly?
It's a mixture of things, Councillor Robinson. We did undertake a quite detailed review of the capital programme, and given, excuse me, given the exceptional inflationary pressures that we were seeing on some of our capital schemes, we took a deliberate decision to defer as many of those as possible in the hope that inflation would start to fall back, because we were seeing 25 to 30% increase between pre-contract estimates, pre-tender estimates and final contract prices that were coming back. So we have done some of that. In other cases, it's natural slippage, that you would expect, and also, some of that has been around funding not being confirmed at the relevant time. So, I mean, I would make just one sort of comment, which is something that I've already suggested to the chair in our pre-meeting, that this might be something that the committee might want to look at, sort of how we're managing sort of capital programme, because we do seem to have a pattern of significantly slipping capital spend every year, and I do think that there's probably scope for improving our capital programme planning, forecasting, monitoring, etc., because this does have a real world impact. We use the planned capital expenditure to estimate our debt management costs, and if we are estimating those costs on the basis of a programme of, say, 200 million, and we only end up spending 100 million, then we've overestimated our debt management costs, and that is at the expense of other things that we might want to be spending that money on, in terms of maintaining our current services or improving our current revenue funded services. So understanding why it is that we significantly underspend against the capital profile every year, I think is something which is needs a bit of work, and something which I think this committee would probably be quite interested in.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jan. Yeah, I've got a couple of questions, Jan, just to end up on, but just moving forward with what you were saying about the capital spend and slippage. I can see heads nodding in the committee here, so that is way forward with that. I think the SEN transport as well is another one that this committee needs to be looking at. And just going off my question that I've got here, on page 52, I think it is, of this report, from the 9 million savings that were targeted for 2022-23, there's nearly 4 million that has been RAG rated as red, and that's not expected to be delivered in year. So my question is, has the impact of this been taken into account for next year's budget and future budgets? And also from page 54 onwards, where it's the outturn summary by individual services, it's not the figures that I'm concerned about. What I'm concerned about is the fact that there's so many both overspends and underspends that mention staffing problems that are a result of staffing problems or vacancies or not being able to fill the posts. So that's just a remark from me, and I think that's something that we'll need to be sort of doing a deep dive into from this scrutiny committee as well. Why is it that this is still going on year after year? It might be something that we need to hand over to another scrutiny committee. I'm not sure, health and well-being or whatever.
Fits with you.
It fits with us. Yeah, good. Thank you.
So, Chair, would you like me to respond to that? On the savings, you'll see that the most significant area that's red as at December was adult social care and commissioning, and that's the issue that Councillor Oliver was asking about earlier. And yes, we have taken account of this in setting this year's budget. I think generally speaking, there is an expectation that if the original savings proposals haven't been delivered, that alternative savings proposals will be brought forward. But you're quite right that the underlying reason why a number of these savings haven't been delivered is because of the recruitment and retention difficulties that we've had. And there are a range of things which are happening to address that. There is a workforce stream within the BEST programme, which is looking at this issue, and what I will say is that we are starting to see the market turning now, that some of those recruitment and retention issues, difficulties are starting to ease. I think probably linked to the cost of living crisis, that what we're seeing nationally, and I think we're seeing locally as well, more people returning to work, and so, you know, I think some of we done 12 months, for example, in terms of uprating travel allowances, moving more swiftly to the national living wage in Northumberland, and accelerating that are helping as well. But we are also doing some fundamental work on our recruitment sort of processes and systems, and working really hard on our employer value proposition, the thing that makes people want to come and work in Northumberland for the council, you know, as an employer. So I think it's about all of those things together, helping us to manage those things. But it you know, it has, alongside, you know, the hyperinflation that we've seen, recruitment difficulties have been the most challenging thing, and all of that is manifesting itself in the financial position, and also will be having a service impact. So we're managing it as best we can.
Thank you, Jan. Are there any other questions on this item? Yep.
I think I missed, you mentioned something about health and well-being, which I missed, but what I would do is that we will take it offline, because I'm the chair of health and well-being, so I missed that. That's
fine. I think Sean has confirmed that it would come back to this committee, so that's fine. Right, we'll close that agenda item there. I think we've, between the two of those items, we've identified quite a few work streams for this committee, so I think we're going to have a busy few months later on. If we move on to agenda item 7, and that's the monitoring report, and it's pages 93 to 98 of your pack. So members are asked to review this and consider whether further examination of the issues listed is required. Sean, do you want to introduce this?
You've just said exactly what I was going to say, Chair. So, obviously, we're looking forward to the work programme next year, but we would like members to indicate today whether there are any issues that you've considered the previous year that you would like to roll over into next year. Obviously, I mean, you know, the debt recovery updates is something you get 6 monthly anyway, and economic development updates from Janice Rose will probably continue as well. But if there are any other issues that members want to identify, if you could let us know, we'll see if we can weave them into next year's programme.
Councillor Robinson.
Well, I'd certainly like these 3 monthly budget reports I call the cabinet.
Yeah.
You know, I'd like them included in it.
Yeah.
Chair, we get a lot of money into Northumberland from the government. Not only just through the Levelling Up Fund, but mainly through the Levelling Up Fund. In Blythe, 16 million quid recently to Ashington. All welcomed, but we never discuss it.
Yeah, I mean, if you remember when Janice came, I think it was in December, she gave a presentation on all of the sort of the main programmes. And she did say at the time that if members wanted to do a deep dive on any of the issues that she raised, she was quite happy to facilitate that. And I think she's probably due to come back in June or July.
Right.
So I think that's probably the time
Yeah.
to flag up any issues that you want to...
Yeah, I accept that if we wait till then, but I'm thinking, you know, for example, Blythe, the largest town in Northumberland, I think we owe it to the residents to ensure it's on schedule. Last week, I couldn't believe suddenly 19 million quid was found for a bridge. And at the same time, where we're getting a railway line, I learned we're not getting a car park for another 24 years. I learned that a station building that would be a waiting room is going to be pulled down. I'm thinking, are we paying for a bridge? So I need to know this information so I can share the correct information and not speculation to the community. And I think we should be doing that rather than just saying, thanks very much for the money, government, and we'll spend it. Just in case they come back and ask for it.
Right, if we just clarify exactly what we do need, Alex, from that, not now, I mean... but
I'm happy to wait for Janice's report and perhaps we can look into it in more depth then.
I think that's the way to get the report and then see which bits you want to pick out of it and look further into, yeah? Right, agenda item 8 is urgent business. I haven't been advised of any, so we'll move quickly on to the next item, which is item 9, exclusion of press and public. And it's at this time, it's in fact now for the committee to consider moving into closed session before consideration of item 10 on the agenda for the reasons that are detailed in the resolution in the paper. So I will move that we go into closed session. Is anyone willing to second that? Councillor Bainan? And has everybody agreed? Yeah. Okay. So we will move into closed session. Can I just thank the member of the public that was here, but he's gone, for his participation. Right.